Ubisoft has announced the winner of the For Honor Open Beta Faction War, and if you haven't heard yet, the winner is the Knights. Congratulations fellow Knights, you made a huge comeback from just only having 11 territories a few hours prior. Enjoy the spoils of war, which in this case I guess is a hypothetical Jerusalem and a fancy gold border for your emblem. Now I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about why we shouldn't have won and why a lot of people feel that the faction war is broken in its current implementation. While I am happy that we get loot, a broken faction war means a diminished spirit of competition. Why fight for a particular faction when in the end it doesn't even matter? So how's it broken? Well, first let's take a look at the amount of territories held by each faction throughout the open beta. There are two explanations as to why each faction goes up and down so much over the course of 3 days. The first explanation is that the faction that is losing receives more war assets. While I haven't seen any evidence proving or disproving this, there is no doubt that there is some artificial balancing done on behalf of Ubisoft, because if there wasn't, the faction that would be winning is the faction with the most players, since they'd essentially have the most assets every turn. The second explanation is that the losing faction has less zones to attack and defend, so more assets go into any of the current territories in conflict. Ultimately, the Knights won not because they played the most, not because they got the most war assets, but because it was simply their turn. The open beta ended on turn 14. Had it ended on turn 13, the Samurai would have won. Had it ended on turn 15, the Vikings would have won. There is no strategy involved in the faction war. When you deploy your assets into a territory, it barely makes a difference, and most players probably don't even care for deploying their assets, so it's spread across all over the faction's conflicted territories. So who really should have won the faction war? I'm not sure. The Samurai held the most territories 8 times during the open beta, the Vikings held them 4 times, and the Knights only twice. However, the Vikings did win the faction war in closed beta, the War of the Factions livestream, had the most assets at the end of open beta, and were winning 2 hours into the next turn before open beta ended. In defense of the Knights, you don't win by being ahead the whole race, you win by being ahead at the finish line. As for how it will be when the game launches, we'll have to see. The open beta was 3 days, a round lasts 2 weeks, and a season lasts 10 weeks. Hopefully the open beta was just too short to see how the faction war really works. If not, a faction can essentially win the faction war by gaining the most territories in the last 2 turns, regardless of their performance in the last 46. Let me know how you feel about how the faction war turned out in the comments below. As for me, the faction war has been reduced to what shape I want my emblem to have. My name is Phunkyzz, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.